Hello everybody and welcome back to Amity Blue. My name is Nazy. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the new textile kit that I'm going to be coming out with this month. It is a limited edition and it is called Bloom. Now the reason it is called a Bloom collection is because it has to do with floral fabric. So if you're interested in seeing more about the Bloom textile collection, then please keep watching. Here it is! It's so colorful. I'm so excited. It's perfect for the springtime and the summertime. As you can see, you are getting so many different types of floral fabrics. It's insane. Around 75 different types of floral fabric samples. And the best part about this Bloom kit is the history related to it. The story of how I managed to own this precious fabric is a beautiful story. I went to my father to my first ever antique auction and he took me with him. And I was blown away when there was a person that was auctioning off an entire collection of authentic Empire feed sacks from the 1930s, 1940s, even some are 1920s. I was just blown away. As a fabric lover and as a floral lover, I found out about the feed sacks a couple years ago by my neighbor. She was the one that originally showed me the feed sacks. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the story, and I've always been wanting to purchase them, but they tend to be very expensive. And I wanted to one day have a collection of them, not just a couple. And it was honestly as if the gods listened to my prayers because this is what they were auctioning, and not just this. I'll insert a little clip of my entire collection of vintage Empire feed sacks. So I was fortunate enough to win the bidding at the auction, and I am just over the moon, overjoyed with what I managed to add to my fabric collection. It was definitely an investment. It was a gift to myself, as this is something that I've wanted for a long time, and to think that I have an entire collection just made me so happy because I knew I would be able to share it with you guys. If you're unfamiliar about the Empire feed sacks, let me give you a little story about them. It's really, really interesting and really cool, especially if you have lived in the United States and your family have lived for the United States for years, and you experienced either yourself the Great Depression or your parents experienced the Great Depression. The feed sacks were something that, in my eyes, were such an amazing way that women, and not just women, but anybody, because in times of need, people become frugal. And this was such a way that even in poverty, these women and these people still managed to bloom their creativity with what they had. And this is just an example. I hope that you can see it on camera. But this is the wonderful little berry fabric that you saw me use in my vintage cookbook recipe journal. And let me zoom in a little bit here. Can you see the little Empire logo right there at the bottom? I hope that you can see it. What makes these feed sacks a collector's item is that this company is no longer making feed sacks. There are other companies that created and imitated these designs on calico fabric, but this is made on like a grain sack linen, beautiful material, and just the images and the colors, you can't recreate the true vintage look. So I thought that was so cute, and I saved that one for myself. And I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but you can kind of see the dots here. You can see here the little rips in the fabric where they were used as flour sacks. This is a little scrap that was left over, but look at the beautiful colors. You can see the fibers in the fabric, and then you can also see the little logo right there. It says Empire, and I just thought the logo was so cute. Here's another one that has the little logo. This is a beautiful floral. They're all just so bright and colorful. And then this one I saved because it had a little number. And I did a lot of research on the feed sacks, and I read that sometimes they would put numbers depending on how much that feed sack would weigh, because sometimes they'd put rice, sugar, flour, anything that you could into these feed sacks. The story of the feed sacks goes back to the 1920s, 1930s. Textile companies would use heavy canvas or linen feed sacks, and they replaced barrels and tins to store flour, animal feed, and other types of goods during the Great Depression and during the time of the war. Because all of the supplies were being exported towards the war, where people still needed to get obviously their food and their feed sacks to either their animals or to make their own food. And they started using this type of material. It wasn't until women took a toll into the designing process and began putting beautiful florals and images onto the fabric after the farmers' wives or the farmer would use the feed sacks to feed their animals, or they use their feed sacks for their own food, to cook their own food. They utilized and repurposed the fabric, and they used them to make clothing and dresses. The women, even in times of poverty and when they needed to become frugal, they utilized the fabric that came in their feed sacks to create clothing. And by 1942, there's an estimated 3 million Americans wore at least one article of clothing made out of feed sacks, which it completely blew my mind. And if any of you, definitely please leave a comment below if you lived during this time, or if you have pictures, or if you have memories of your mother, your grandmother, or your family members who utilized feed sacks to make their clothing. It's just truly an heirloom item. It's a collector's item, and I am so honored and so humbled that I was able to include these beautiful fabrics filled with so much history in my collection, and I am even more excited to share them with you all. I also wanted to share with you all this. Now, this was a feed sack that was on top of the pile, and when I saw this, I nearly fainted because right now I am currently experimenting with making my own clothes with fabric, and when I saw this, just the story of the feed sacks and how women would repurpose them and recycle them. They would create clothing out of it. They would create dresses for their daughters in a time when there wasn't fabric available, and in a time when there wasn't money to be spent on clothing. They use these feed sacks, and it's an amazing example of letting your creativity bloom to the fullest, even in times of poverty and in need. This, I will never ever cut it apart. This one, it will remain in my collection just like this, with the little pin attached, and it will become an heirloom for when my daughters grow up and I teach them about the feed sacks. So now that you know a little bit more about the feed sacks, like I said, this is only a limited edition, so this is the only time that I will ever be selling my feed sacks. I truly want to have them in my collection. I don't just want to sell them all away. I bought them purely for my collection, and I wanted to share a little bit of that with you all, but this is probably the only time that I will be selling it. Maybe in the future, if I think about it, I might sell a little bit more, but I definitely want to keep part of that collection for myself and for my children. With that being said, there will be 10 textile embellishment kits of the Bloom style. 10 of those will be the full kit. You get around 75 fabrics, like I mentioned. You get your trims, and you get some really cute colorful buttons. So there'll be 10 of those, and then I have also decided to include, for those of you who don't want the full collection, but you do want to get a little bit, I created a little mini kit, which is half of the fabric, so it's around 35. You also get your same little trims. So there will be 2 of these little mini kits and 10 of the big kits. I've been getting a lot of messages about offering various sizes, and most of the messages that I was getting wanted the full big kit, just because you get pretty much double the amount, and it turns out to be more affordable if you just buy the big kit. All right, so let me move these aside here, and let's start taking a look at the fabric. So the first one is probably one of my favorites. It's this beautiful floral fabric, and it has some beautiful little red flowers. They kind of look like lemons. But I'm just going to give you a quick little flip through of all of the fabrics that you will be getting. And I love how you can see on the back all of the fibers of the linen. This one is the one that I used in my cookbook that was loved by so many of you. And I've actually found it very hard to find feed sacks that have these little blueberry designs. I was so happy to be able to share some of that with you all. Here's some more beautiful flowers. Just truly such cute and darling little designs. Can you imagine cutting these up and using them as washi tape in your journal? What I'm planning on doing is I really want to make myself a pin cushion, just because as I'm getting more into sewing and into making my own clothes, I definitely am in need of a really cute pin cushion. So I'm deciding to make, with the scraps that I have left over, I don't want to cut into more of my full feed sacks, but with the scraps that I do have left over, I want to create a cute little multi-fabric, like a quilted pincushion. And definitely let me know if you'd be interested in seeing a tutorial, as I think I might, just because I love pincushions and I think it would be a fun little gift idea to give to a fellow sewer friend. But you can see just such beautiful fabrics. I love that floral. I want that in a dress. So cute. And then this one I love because there's no design on it, but it's this beautiful mint color. Oh, so pretty. And now you can create a journal out of this. You can collage all of them together by color. You can collage all your reds, all your purples, all your blues, add some trim on the side. Just, you can make a beautiful collage. This one's so pretty. I completely forgot about this one. The first time that I brought these home and I showed my mom, we just spent hours just looking at all of the fabrics and looking at all the patterns. And then of course, we watched so many videos on the history of these wonderful feed sacks. And I absolutely fell in love with just the story that these beautiful fabrics have, especially here in the United States during the Great Depression. It was such a terrible and really rough time for many people, and this was just such a beautiful source of inspiration, of color, of creativity that was being generated by women, and it's just so empowering. I love it, and I'm just so proud to have this in my collection, and I'm so happy to be sharing it with you all. Look at this. These are little bows. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine tabs out of these, or pockets, or flip outs? You can stitch multiple ones together and make a beautiful flip out of them, a collaged cover for your journal. You can even make a quilt, which is what I'm also planning on doing. It's on my list of sewing projects, to make a quilt out of all of my scraps that I had left over from the Bloom Textile Embellishment Kit, and I'll definitely share that with you all, as I think this would be such a beautiful quilt to have because it has so much story to it. I really love this one. This one reminds me of like Mexican folklore designs, and if you've ever seen some Mexican folk fabric, it reminds me of that. Oh, this one's really pretty too. Oh, I love this one as well. I think this one was my sister's favorite just because she loves purple, and she thought this was like a coloring book fabric, and she wanted to color in with like marker. So cute. This one looks Hawaiian. I really love how that one looks. Some beautiful little ferns. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine putting these in your journal? And then the way that they feel. It's one thing just how beautiful they are, but how they feel in your hand in the bright, vibrant colors. You know, they don't make fabric like this anymore. And I love that many other companies in the 2000s were reproducing these types of fabrics. They're not exactly the same. Obviously, they're not the real deal. But they were reproductions, and that's when they would print them on calico fabric. But there's nothing like touching an authentic canvas fabric with these beautiful floral designs. So beautiful. As you can see, such a beautiful little array of florals. It's like florals galore. And this is the perfect time for this kit because the flowers are blooming. It's springtime where I live now. No more dark, gray, dreary days. I'm starting to see the daffodils and the roses blooming in the garden, and this just makes me so happy, and it's the perfect time to share this beautiful textile kit with you all. So those are all of the fabrics that you will be getting in the big kit. And then I, of course, had to give you some trim that matched. Here I have two big trims. They're about this big, and you get about 36 to 40 inches of that trim. And then I have also included some beautiful vintage embroidered trims. Now you only get about 12 inches of the embroidered trims just because my supplier only had a certain amount and they're not being manufactured anymore, so I couldn't get 10 yards of it. But I am in the works of finding a supplier that sells authentic vintage trims and supplying it by the yard in my Etsy shop, which I think will be really fun. As you can see, this is what was left over from me, but I'm perfectly okay with that because I get a little bit of all of the flowers, and this is the repeated design that goes throughout. And then you get a full baggie of some beautiful colored pastel buttons, really pretty buttons, and then all of these together are just a pop of color that would make any journal bloom with color and bloom with your creativity. And for me, I have been waiting to see color after all these winter months, so this kit is perfect, and I cannot wait for you guys to have them in your hands. So that is the entire limited edition Bloom Textile Embellishment Kit. This is the large one, and then this is the mini one. I truly hope that you guys loved and treasure this kit as much as I did. This is a beautiful item to include into your collection if you are a fabric lover or if you are a floral lover of any kind. You can make quilts, journals, pincushions, and I will be sharing a lot of some really fun fabric tutorials in the coming weeks to show you different ways that you can utilize the fabric from the Textile Embellishment Kit. If you're interested in purchasing either one of the 10 big kits or one of the 2 little small kits, definitely click the link below to my Etsy shop. I will link it up here at the top, as well as in the description and in the comments, at 3:00 p.m. today Eastern Standard Time. So that way you have a couple of hours to watch all of the videos, choose which one of the kits you like the best, which size you like the best, and then go ahead and purchase. Definitely leave a like if you want to see some fun and creative ways of using these beautiful Bloom fabrics. And until next time, my friends, I hope that your day is filled with a huge abundance of peace and love. Bye-bye.